Hello there. Today we're going to be discussing the order of operations. Now this is just the first day, so all we're going to do is we're going to go over the introduction and the logistics of how exactly these order of operations work. And so let's get started. So, the order of operations typically follows the traditional setup of the way in which we solve a question with many operations, right? So we've got brackets, exponents, as you know, division and multiplication from the left-hand side all the way to the right-hand side, and addition and subtraction likewise from the left-hand side all the way to the right-hand side. So today we're going to begin by only focusing on those last two. So we're going to be focusing on division and multiplication and addition and subtraction, and we're going to talk about how to organize our work in such a way where we actually end up solving all of those in the correct order, right? So we're going to end up solving everything not just in any way but also in the right way. We're going to talk about how exactly we get there in just a second here. Let me just adjust my camera. There we go. All right. We will afterwards throw in brackets, bracket notations, and all that good stuff. And exponents will come last. They tend to be typically very rare in these situations anyway. It's really brackets, the DM, and the AS that we're worried about. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's cover negatives and circling and exactly what happens right after we circle. So the preamble, dealing with negatives. In the original question, the negative will often have a parenthesis around it to separate the negative sign from the actual operations. So let's go over some examples of this. So here I have 7 plus negative 5, and you can see here that if we didn't have these parentheses, these little sort of baby brackets around the negative, it would sort of look very messy. It would have two signs right next to each other. Mathematicians don't like that too much, so we put these parentheses to just separate things out. Right? And so that is what we mean when we talk about parenthesis. But here comes an important distinction. So this green sign here is referred to in math as a minus sign. The reason being it indicates to us that we must subtract. Right? Now, this is a very important distinction from the other kind of sign, which is called the negative sign. The negative sign does not imply subtraction, right? And often this is very confusing to some people because, you know, people grow up learning, okay, 7 minus 5, this is 7 plus 5, which is 12. Yay, we're all done. But really, the second sign is not at all a minus sign. It is a negative sign. You're still subtracting, but you're subtracting a number that just so happens to be negative. Now let me give you an example of this to sort of clarify this. Let's say I had $7, okay? And you owed me $5, right? Now it doesn't feel right to say the difference between us is only 2 because obviously I owe much more than that. I have $7+ and I actually am counting on getting $5 from you. Right? So how would we quantify this relationship? Well, we know intuitively that it's 7 plus 5, which is 12, but when we think about it, we're saying, okay, we're looking for the distance between 7 and negative 5 on the number line, and it just so happens that the number we're dealing with is 7 and negative 5. Now, negative 5 is much, much further away, right? If we think about the number line spectrum, negative 5 is maybe around here, and 7 is maybe up here. So negative 5 is further away, and we're just knowing what is that number. And then the other sign is telling us to subtract. Of course, when we subtract, we find the difference on the number line between two numbers. So we're going to go 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, and negative 5. Right? So we need to understand this difference. It's purely semantic at this point, but we will start to understand why this distinction is important in just a second. Okay? Now, parentheses should only appear in the original question. You don't need to deal with them moving forward. They don't actually even indicate an operation. So if you look at these parentheses, they're really just there to make the question look pretty. So parentheses are not an operator. Okay? So that's the idea there. The thing is, though, it's still not really ideal to write numbers like that. You still want to have some sort of consistency. So what we do is we make sure that any additional signs are written in what we call the raised format. So what is this raised format? Basically, when you have two signs next to each other, you write them like this. You write one sign kind of lower, and you write one sign definitely higher. And this makes it just aesthetically more pleasing to look at. Okay? All right. Now, circling and circling rules. So general circling policies, obviously during the bracket step and the question step, you have to circle everything. Now, let's look at this blue box here. Remember that the goal of circling is to basically break up the problem, to contain the problem, such that within each circle, the only operations are multiplication and division. It's totally fine to have negative signs in there. It's not fine to have minus signs in there. That is why we say that whenever we have a plus or a minus sign, that is where you end or start the circle. And I'm going to show you what this means in a second, right? So let's start this. We start with 6, but as soon as we start circling, we come across this sign, which is a minus sign. Right? We discussed this, how the negative sign is the sign basically stuck to a parenthesis. This is a minus sign. In other words, the circle ends right there, and we start a new circle. And this new circle keeps going all the way to the end of this plus sign. Because over here, we simply have not a minus sign, but a negative sign. Which is fine. We don't care. A negative sign does not indicate any kind of operation. That's fine. Right? Over here, again, we have a plus sign, same idea, we make another big circle, and again, we have another plus sign, which means we make another big circle. Now, the important thing to do now is to just look inside each of these circles and just verify quickly that all we have in these circles is only one operation. Right? So we have minus here, that's fine. We have a plus here, that's fine. We have a plus here, that's fine. If the circle was too big, for example, if it went all the way that way, that would indicate to us that something went wrong because we would have two operations within one circle, right? So the key point here is the point number 2, to terminate the circle whenever you see a plus or a minus sign, but never ever when you see a negative sign. Those are good to go, okay? And of course, the next step is to evaluate inside each circle by regrouping, which we cover right here. So what happens after we circle? Well, first of all, you evaluate the inside of each circle by regrouping and relocating as needed. We're also going to count the number of negative signs inside each circle. An even number of negative signs indicates a positive answer. An odd number of signs indicates a negative answer. Okay? Now, remember that you are circling for the purposes of grouping the answer. You want to group the question into nice, easy little bites to swallow, and within these bites, you should do regrouping. You should do relocation. This will make your life so much easier on the grand scheme of things. Okay? So make sure you do it that way. Now, at this point, you're probably super confused as to what is going on, but don't even worry. We will do a sample problem directly on the next slide. So, here is our sample problem. Before I do this with you, I would actually encourage you to take a second and try this problem on your own. And to sort of help you with that, I've given you this 5-minute time scale right here in the corner, and I'm going to activate this. I'm actually going to step away from the screen right now, and I'm going to allow you the opportunity to work through this problem on your own. All right? So good luck. Go ahead and definitely try and use the strategies we've talked about. Feel free to pause the video. Feel free to go back through the slides we've already talked about and go through the problem. Talk about exactly what's going on. Okay? I will be back very shortly. Good luck. So for some reason the video is not playing here. Okay, no worries. I will just time the 5 minutes on my end. and we will take it up after 5 minutes. Alright, so there it says 5 minutes, and I will time the 5 minutes on my end, and at the end we will take it up. Alright folks, so that was just about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit more time. So why don't we actually go ahead and take this up now, right? So, the first step is to, of course, rewrite all the adjacent signs. And you want to do this mentally, right? So here I have it written out. We have 5 times 2, that's fine. Divide by -10. So you can see that this has just been replaced semantically to get rid of the garbage being the parenthesis. We don't want parenthesis anymore, so we're getting rid of it all, okay? That's the idea here. Plus 3 times -2, exact same idea here. And then for the 7s, we just put the 2 negatives side by side. Yes, technically this is a minus and this is a negative, but this helps us much better see that relationship. That's really, we're dealing with a positive, okay? Next up, Circle at the brackets or question stage. Let's go ahead and circle a little bit. So 5 times 2 divided by negative 10 is 1 circle. This is not a problem. We're okay with negatives. This is a problem. We cannot have this plus sign, so we need to make another circle. Same idea. One operation, not an operation. We're good to go. Same idea. One operation, not an operation. We're good to go. Okay? And now we count the negatives and we evaluate by regrouping. One more time. We count the negatives and we evaluate by regrouping. Let's go ahead and do that. So here's one negative. What does that mean? That negative means that we're going to have a situation where our answer is going to be negative. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 divided by 10 is 10, but it's a negative answer. So we have negative 1 there. Again, very similarly, we have a negative right here. And we know, of course, that 3 times 2 is equal to 6, but that one negative means it's going to be negative 6. And then the 2 negatives at the end of that 7 there, now there's 2 of them, of course, so that's going to mean we're going to have a positive 7. And our final answer, it's equal to 0. All right? Now at this point, I wanted to go over a couple of things. First of all, I have these numbers appear on the slide on the right-hand side, right there. Now, why are they here? Well, these are the slides from this PowerPoint that you can go back to sequentially to look through how we did this problem. Super cool, right? You can actually go through every single step, one by one, and see how we came up with the answers we came up with. The other thing is that you can actually check these values using a BEDMAS enabled calculator. Now, I actually did this before the session, so let me see if I can pull it up quickly, right? So I've plugged this equation into a calculator. Now, here it is. And you can see that I also got an answer of 0. There you go. Right? And of course, having a BEDMAS enabled calculator is a very good idea. Okay, here I have written 3 homework problems. Okay, these problems simply deal with the parentheses we talked about and plus, minus, divide, multiply. That's it. There's no brackets at this point. Obviously, these videos are asynchronous, so homework is not enforced. It's not mandatory for submission. It is, however, in your benefit to complete the homework as the videos build on one another. So our next video is going to talk about brackets and exponents and all kinds of cool things. And if you haven't watched so far these videos sequentially, you're just going to be lost. So definitely my recommendation is to keep up with the work and do these homework problems. All right? As it says, be sure to complete these questions using the exact same manner from the previous problems. The sample problem, all the slides, show the circling, show the calculations for the individual circles, and of course, calculate the final answer. All right? That's all for today's video. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.